Well, hey, everybody, welcome to Our Watch. I am Tim Thompson. You might not know this, but you should know that fentanyl poisoning is the leading cause of death for people 18 to 45 in our nation. It's not COVID, it's not heart disease, it's not car wrecks. It is fentanyl poisoning, and it is something that can be avoided. It's something we're going to be talking about today with somebody who's been on our program before, who knows all too well the dangers of fentanyl. It is a man named Matt Capelouto. Matt, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Tim.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about. You've had some victories lately. These are, they're your victories, but they're our victories. This is something that the state should celebrate in. I want to talk about those victories, but before we get into that, for somebody who may just be joining our watch and hasn't heard your story, share with us about your this picture you have here in your story.
Sure. This is my daughter, Alexandra. Back in 2019, she was a college student attending a major university on a full academic scholarship. And she made an unwise choice to deal with her depression and anxiety that she was having at the time. And she reached out to a drug dealer in search of the prescription painkiller Percocet. This drug dealer ended up selling her counterfeit Percocet pills, or also known as oxycodone pills, and they were simply made with lethal doses of fentanyl. But unbeknownst to my daughter, that these pills were going to be lethal. She took half of one of these pills before going to bed, and it killed her within minutes. And we were shocked to find out that in California there were no laws on the books to hold I don't call him a drug dealer, I call him a death dealer, to hold him accountable for my daughter's death. And I want to make this point. My daughter did not make a wise choice to purchase what she thought was a prescription painkiller illegally, but it wasn't an evil choice. The evil choice was made by that man who chose to risk her life to make a few dollars. And I was appalled that we had no laws on the books to hold him accountable.
Right. Yeah, I mean, certainly what your daughter did was wrong, but the punishment isn't death.
Right.
That punishment doesn't fit that crime.
Right.
And your daughter isn't alone in this. As I opened up our program with, this is a leading cause of death.
Yeah, but many people are surprised by that, and I've met, hundreds, maybe thousands at this point of parents, because I'm very active in this community of parents who have lost children to fentanyl poisoning. People on the outside really don't get it and don't understand the nature and scope of this epidemic. But yes, it is the number one cause of death for Americans age 18 to 45. I have heard recently that that's about to drop to the age 16. And, it's tragic because these are preventable deaths.
You hear on the news, if anybody's turning on the news, they're hearing about the fentanyl crisis we have in our nation. One of the things that drives me nuts, and I know it drives you nuts even worse, is to hear these journalists on the news refer to these deaths as overdoses. Because these are not overdoses. That is not the correct term to be using, right?
But by definition alone, the definition of overdose does not even fit these deaths. For something to be for an overdose, you're presumably taking too much of something. If you have a drug being marketed in a pill form, you could presume you could take one and it's not going to kill you, let alone half. The other thing that we have never seen before in the drug trade is people basically being deceived to death, thinking they're taking one drug, but actually taking a poison that kills them.
Right. And, we look at the amount of fentanyl that is in our country. Talking to our district attorney, at one point we had so much fentanyl in our county alone, Riverside County here in Southern California. We had enough fentanyl in our county to kill the entire world population.
Right. It's scary.
It's scary. This is a problem. It's a problem that for some reason many people in our government don't want to address. I hate to say that some people in the government are in on it, but it almost seems that way at some point. It's like, why aren't they doing something about this? This is a massive problem. And I know we've got the political issues of a secure border, but the open border is a massive part of this problem.
Certainly, and I am a proponent for sealing our borders, but I think it's going to be almost impossible to keep this drug out of our country. We're talking about a drug that kills in milligrams. The average amount of fentanyl, or the amount of fentanyl that can kill a person, is about 2 milligrams. That can fit on the tip of a pen. And we've never really been able to stop drugs from coming across our border. And now we're trying to stop a drug that in the tiniest amounts will kill somebody. And we don't even address the fentanyl that's actually being produced in our own country. I think the way we're going to get ahead of this problem is twofold. It's through education and starting to hold accountable the drug dealers right here in our own country. Another important thing to point out here is the vast majority of those who are caught smuggling drugs into our country are actually American citizens. Okay, and until we hold them accountable, we're just going to continue letting these people get away with murder. Here's a statistic for you that's very important for people to understand. Less than 2% of all drug deaths result in the conviction of a drug dealer. We need to reverse that. It should be less than 2% of drug dealers get away with killing somebody.
Right. Right. So when this tragedy hit your family and you realized there weren't these laws in place, you decided to step up, take the lead. You worked with the local sheriff and the local district attorney, because I want us to lean towards the victories you've had lately. But these victories they didn't come without a strong, long fight on your part, and some help from some friends along the way. So what did you initially start to do?
Well, we wanted to come up with a law that would hold these dealers accountable, and that was a challenge. Given the political climate here in California, holding anybody accountable for anything, it was a challenge. And in California, like I said, we don't have a direct law to hold a drug dealer accountable for someone's death. Prosecutors are left to work under this theory of what's called implied malice. And for first-degree murder, you have to prove that someone intended to kill somebody. Under second-degree murder, we can work under this theory of implied malice, and that is where somebody knows and is aware of the dangers of the activity that they're involved in, and despite that knowledge, despite being aware of those dangers, they continue to do it anyways. And in this case, a drug dealer, and somebody dies. So if prosecutors can prove that the dealer was aware of the dangers of what they were doing, and despite that knowledge, went ahead and provided those drugs anyway, and somebody died, then they could be held accountable for a death. But that is actually a difficult burden to prove. You're trying to prove a mindset. You know, inherently, we all know dealing drugs is dangerous. That's why it's illegal, right? But how do you prove it? A drug dealer can simply say, I didn't know, keep quiet, and it's up to the prosecution to prove otherwise. So we came up with Alexandra's Law. What Alexandra's Law does is if somebody is convicted of a drug offense, they're going to get a warning in court, read by a judge, documented on court records, and also provided to them in writing that makes them aware that drugs are dangerous and can result in somebody's death. And if you continue to take part in the drug trade and somebody dies as a result of you being part of that drug transaction or furnishing drugs to somebody, you can now be held accountable for murder. Simply an admonishment, kept on record, providing them with this knowledge. If they listen to that, and which is ultimately what we want them
Right.
to get out of the drug trade.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a deterrent, right?
Yes.
We just don't want this happening.
Right.
Right.
They have nothing to worry about.
Right.
But if they don't, they continue, and somebody dies as a result of their continued actions. Now prosecutors can prove this implied malice. You did have that knowledge. Despite knowing the dangers, you went ahead and did it anyways. And under that implied malice theory, we can convict them on second-degree murder.
So you came up with this. You had Rosie, what's her name? Sorry. Ochoa. Yeah.
She was one of the
She was one of the co-authors.
Yeah, so we tried to get this passed through our state legislature. We actually first started, the first senator to author the bill was Senator Melissa Melendez. And she had it for 2 years, did a great job, but given the nature of our legislature and the Public Safety Committee, we could not get it out of our Public Safety Committee. I can't even explain it. It dumbfounds me that they want it.
It is unbelievable. To me, bills like this are common sense.
Yes.
This is it's so easy for for the Californians to hear this and go, well, yeah, of course we want that for our society. That it shouldn't even. This is a no-brainer. The fact that you get it into a committee and they didn't even want to vote on it, right?
So then fast forward,
unbelievable.
Melissa Melendez had it for a couple years. She ended up terming out, and if I wanted to present it again, I had to find another senator to work with. We found Senator Tom Umberg, happens to be a Democrat, and we thought this was good because the majority of our legislature are Democrats, and he did a phenomenal job. We ended up having 22 Senate co-authors on the bill. There's 40 state senators, and if we could have got it to the floor for the 40 state senators to vote on, it would have passed. But we still couldn't get it out of committee.
So who was on this committee? Just so we know the names.
Sure. Scott Wiener from San Francisco.
Imagine that.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah.
Nancy Skinner, she's from the Bay Area as well. Stephen Bradford from Los Angeles. His big issue was always bringing race into it. All this is going to do is arrest black and brown people and increase our prisons with minorities, and just this mindset that's you can't ration with some
right.
You
can't reason with an unreasonable person,
right?
Yeah.
And then I'm trying to blank on her name. She became the head of the Public Safety Committee. Gosh dang, I don't know why I'm trying to blank on her name. But yes, she didn't even show up to vote on it. And so this was very challenging. I could go on forever with a lot more details that would blow your mind. But long story short, we got Alexandra's Law to be part of Proposition 36, a ballot measure taken to the people for the people to vote on. And this last November, Proposition 36 passed overwhelmingly. So Alexandra's Law has now gone into effect.
Right. December 18th, it went into effect.
Correct.
Right. Yeah.
And as of December 18th, anybody arrested and convicted for a drug conviction will get this admonishment read to them. It will be documented. And like I said, hopefully it deters them. But if not, now prosecutors can use that as evidence to hold them accountable and charge them with second-degree murder.
Amen to that.
Yes.
Yeah, praise God. We people like you fighting for what is good and true and right in our state, and in various topics. This happens to be your topic, your passion, the assignment God has given you. But all too often we find in the state it's difficult when people are fighting for what is true and right. And you get beat up a lot in California when you're doing that. Yeah. But every once in a while, you have victories like this that are huge, and they should be celebrated and talked about. And that's one of the fears I have, is that the victory came, but people aren't going to talk about it. Let's talk about this, the victory that God has given us in this state. That people who are people of faith, people who have common sense, showed up to the polls. They voted. They let their voice be heard, and overwhelmingly, this passed.
Yeah.
Overwhelmingly.
Yeah.
This wasn't one of those ones like, "Ooh, by the skin of our teeth, it got through."
Right.
This sent a loud and clear message to the world that California is sick and tired of criminals going unchecked.
Yeah, and a couple other things. I want to circle back. I just thought of her name. I don't want her to go unscathed. Aisha Wahab. She was the chair of the Senate Public Safety Committee, who didn't even show up to vote last time around.
It does not care, obviously, about public safety.
Right.
Yeah.
But another thing that actually was a blessing in disguise, and God works in mysterious ways. As Alexandra's Law progressed through the legislature in an effort for us trying to get it passed, we had to keep watering it down in effort to get something to pass. Our logic was something is better than nothing. And the final version to go through, if we had passed it through our state legislature, would have made it where the admonishment would only be given to somebody who's convicted of a fentanyl offense. And we wanted the admonishment to be given for any hard illegal drugs. Nobody should be dealing any hard illegal drugs, period. And fortunately, through Prop 36, Alexandra's law is in its full original context, so it's as strong as can be. So that turned out to be a blessing in disguise, too, for it to be passed by the people through a ballot measure rather than through our state legislature. The other plus about it is when something is passed through the legislature, they can pull it back anytime. They could take it off the books. They can make amendments to it really easy. They remain in full control. Right. The only way Alexandra's law gets taken off the books at this point is through another ballot measure, and that's not easy to do.
Well, you know that. It's not easy to do. I forget the numbers, but wasn't it something like 65 or 67%?
Close to 70%, just shy of 70%.
Wow.
Supported Proposition 36.
Yeah. So 7 out of 10 voters.
Yeah. Californians are sick and tired of the crap that we're seeing in California. And for a while there, I thought we were a lost cause, but I've got a glimmer of hope for our state now.
No, I think I do too. I really think, especially as we saw what happened in this last election, if people will make sure to not sit back now and rest, and because we've got a lot of work ahead of us, and if we can start voting and we can continue to vote in that direction, I think we can see us take the state back. Because people they're sick and tired of it. We look at what happened in Los Angeles County in this last election. They have a new district attorney now, and praise God for that. The Gascon, the guy before, he was letting people get away. You could rape a woman and be back out on the street that afternoon.
Right.
This is where we've been headed in California, and Californians are sick and tired of it. Our families aren't safe. It's dangerous to even send them to a public school, and we're sick of it. So this is what happens when good men like you don't sit back and do nothing, but you get up and you say, no, I'm going to be a part of the solution because we have a problem. So I applaud you for what you've done, the hard work that you and your family have put into this so far. My guess is you're not done. So what's coming up?
Yeah, well, we have a couple of things. I've been contacted by some elected representatives in other states that want to look at bringing Alexandra's law to their states. So that's great if we could, go nationwide with this.
As California goes, so goes the nation.
Yes. And then just because this passed, we still have to have this mind shift within law enforcement. Over the last decade, because of Prop 47, which made, various crimes basically misdemeanors and not worth pursuing, we need law enforcement to make arrests now for people involved in drug transactions so they actually get the admonishment. The admonishment is not effective if nobody's getting it. And the only way somebody's going to get it is if there is an arrest and a conviction. So where we saw a drop in law enforcement not arresting people because nothing was going to happen to them, we got to get them back motivated to arrest these people, not in an effort to ruin their lives, in an effort to get them on the right path and deter them from potentially killing somebody.
Yeah. And, you are friends with law enforcement, people in law enforcement. So am I. We know this about our law enforcement agents. We have great law enforcement agents in the state of California and across our nation. They want to make these arrests. And it's been very demoralizing for law enforcement agents knowing that if they make the arrest, nothing's going to happen. They will have put themselves and the community in danger trying to execute this arrest, because making an arrest can be very dangerous. So you go put yourself in danger, you risk your own life, you make the arrest, and then nothing happens. That it just drains the morale out of the police department and the sheriff's department. So the fact that they know now, I can make the arrest and something's going to happen, this is going to boost the morale. This is going to cause law enforcement agents to want to be more proactive and going out there and making these kind of arrests. So you're absolutely right. We need to see a shift in that. But that shift could never have happened had you not done what you did. Now, what would be the result of this win that you guys have got? This is going to help shift that morale, shift that focus, and I think we are going to start seeing a lot more arrests for this. So I think it's a good thing for our community. What else do you have coming up?
Just that, educating our law enforcement, making them aware of this law. There's still a lot of, we're lucky in Riverside County. Sheriff Bianco and our district attorney, Mike Hestrin, they have taken this problem very seriously. And despite the challenges, even prior to our law passing, they were doing everything they could to hold fentanyl dealers accountable. But there are a lot of smaller towns and counties across our state that aren't doing this yet. And so I'm going to be working to make sure that every city, every county in this state understands Alexandra's law, the need to make arrests and get people admonished so that we can actually start to get ahead of this epidemic.
Yeah, we have 58 sheriffs in this state and 58 district attorneys. That's a lot of work ahead of you. Are you willing to speak to people? People have questions about this.
Yeah, thank you.
How can they connect with you?
Sure. I had a nonprofit called Stop Drug Homicide. Our website is stopdrughomicide.org. I can be reached directly at matt@stopdrughomicide.org, and I would be happy to get people involved with our organization. Or if there's any affected families out there that didn't know there was a place to turn, certainly get a hold of us.
Awesome. Well, Matt Capelouto, thank you so much for what you're doing for our state and our country. Really, truly appreciate you being on Our Watch today. And I do want to thank you all for joining us. I hope you like this video. Share it out with your friends, your family, your neighbors. They need to hear about this crisis and the victories, too. We need to celebrate in these things that are happening. If you would, head on over to ourwatch.com, subscribe, become one of our watchmen. We truly appreciate that. We love to get true, good, correct information into your life so that way you can be the salt of the earth, the light of the world that God said that you are, and we can have an effect for the kingdom as we await the Lord's return. So God bless you. We'll see you next time right here on Our Watch with Tim Thompson.